return, we return, we return, return again. We return, we return, we return, return again and again to love. Return, return again. We return, we return, we return, return again and again to truth. Return again to truth. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva Kaddish yameinu We return, we return, we return, return again. We return, we return, we return, return again and again to you.
Return to this space. Shana Tova, everybody. We are delighted to be able to be here with you. For those of you who are joining us from home, from around the world, I know we have people tuning in. Welcome to our community and welcome to all of you. It's been a long, long time since we've been able to be here together, and we are so excited to fill our sanctuary with our prayer, with our music, with our celebration for a new year. Just a couple of housekeeping announcements before we turn to our beautiful service. First of all, please make sure that everything that beeps or sings or hisses is turned off.
Not everything that sings. We need your voices.
You stay on. Yes, you stay on. Any devices that make silly noises, please turn those off. This is an awesome place to be in case of an earthquake after our seismic retrofit. But if we need to leave this sanctuary, please remember that there are doors behind the bima and stairs as well as doors that way. I want to thank our incredible, incredible team that has kept us alive and thriving for the last 2.5 years as we have looked forward to this moment of being back together. I'm Rabbi Jessica Graf, Rabbi here, joined by Cantor Toby Glaser and our Rabbinic Intern, George Altshuler, our music director, Jonathan Dimmock, who you will see or hear going upstairs and downstairs to bring us beautiful music from the organ and the piano. We're delighted to have members of our board of trustees on the bima with us tonight. A huge thank you to our entire team. I'm not going to name them because I will forget somebody, but I'm seeing people all over the place who have made this possible, and I thank you all so much. We will begin our service tonight on page 11 of your Machzorim. And I'd like to invite the city board, our Shereth Israel Temple Youth Board, to come forward to light our holiday candles. Come on up, members of our synagogue youth board.
You want to do one each? Let's get the other one lit too. You're doing great. Hey, first time, all right. Beautiful. All right, blow it out. Let's bring the lights. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher במצוותיו וציוונו
We turn to page 12. To everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. This is the season of the soul, a time to rejoice, a time to reflect, a time to return, a time to gather round the table with loved ones and friends, a time for song and silence, for prayer and confession to open the heart, a time to retreat to our sanctuaries within, a time to renew the life and spirit of our community. This is the season of attentiveness, a time to notice what has unfolded and what has not, a time to regret, a time to forgive, a time to remember cherished dreams and high ideals erased by reality. This is the season of hope, like mist rising at sunset, like dew descending at dawn. Our hopes beautify and nourish everything they touch. Our hopes make us partners in creation, pursuers of peace, people who aspire to a world of justice. This is the season of awe when our eyes behold it. May we feel blessed. When we turn toward each other, let us feel strength. When we seek the holy, may we find purpose. May we find courage. May we find love. We continue on page 17 with the beautiful chanting of Hineni, the prayer where the Cantor says, on behalf of all of us, we stand here before you, God. You may want to look at the words on page 16, a personal reflection as the Cantor chants for us.
Hineni ani mimas, nirash v'nifchad mipachad, yoshev tehilot Yisrael, Bahalti lamod ולהתחנן לפניך על עמך ישראל אשר שלחוני אף על פי שנכדי והגוי לכך לכן אבקש ממך אלוהי אברהם אלוהי יצחק אלוהי יעקב אדוני אדוני אל רחום בחנון אלוהי ישראל שדי היום ונורא האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא אל עליון היה אשר היה שכל המלאכים שהם על התפילות יביאו תפילתי לפני כיסא כבודך ויציג אותה לפניך בעבור כל הצדיקים והחסידים התמימים והישרים, ובעבור כבוד שמך הגדול והנורא, כי אתה שומע תפילה עמך ישראל ברחמים. ברוך אתה שומע תפילה.
We continue on page 19. Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu yehi ratzon shenizkeh livirchotecha bishnat 5,783. Our God and God of our ancestors, may we know your blessings in the year 5,783. Eternal One, bless us and the whole house of Israel with renewed life, happiness and peace, comfort and courage, resilience and strength. May the words of our heart be acceptable to you in the new year that stretches before us. We are forever grateful for the gift of life. We turn to page 20 for Baruch Hu. Please stand.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
We continue on page 22. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidbaro ma'ariv aravim v'chochma poteach she'arim uvidvuna meshane itim umachalif et hazmanim umesader et hakochavim b'mishmorotehem barakia kirtzono borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or. Blessed are you, Adonai. Your name, your great name, fills the universe with majestic might. Your word creates twilight and dusk. Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. Blessed are you, Adonai, creator of twilight and dusk.
Uma'avir yom u'mevi layla umavdil ben yom u'ben layla Adonai tzvaot shemo El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv haravim.
We continue reading together in the middle of page 24. Love beyond all space and time, your love enfolds your people Yisrael. We receive it in your teaching, your gift of Torah, sacred obligations, discipline, and law. So let us speak these teachings when we lie down and rise up, and find joy forever in your Torah and mitzvot. They are the very essence of our life, ours to ponder and study all our days. May we never lose or be unworthy of your love.
Yehem chayenu ve'orech yameinu uvahem negeh yomam v'layla ve'avatcha אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד.
Please be seated. We continue on page 28 with Ve'ahavta, and I would like to invite this very good-looking row of recent bar and bat mitzvahs to come forward and to lead this for us. The future's bright, right? Look at this crowd.
They're both taller than me now, maybe. I don't know about that. Oh dear. All right. Come up to the mic, everybody. Where are you? All right. 1, 2, 3. Ve'ahavta. Eloichem emet. Yasher koach, still got it. All right.
We continue on page 32. Truth and faith, these are fundamental to our existence. God alone is their source, and we are Israel, a people of God. Our sovereign saves us from tyranny, redeems us from its violence through countless wonders, from its brutality through great feats beyond measure. We are Israel, a people of God, the giver of life who would not let our feet give way, the maker of miracles for us against Pharaoh, of signs and portents in the land of Egypt, the one who brought our people Israel from its midst to enduring freedom.
הים לפני משה ומרים זה אלי אנו ואמרו Ne'eman, ki fada Adonai et Yaakov, ugalo miyad chazak mimenu, Baruch ata Adonai. Gal Yisrael.
We turn to page 36 for Hashkivenu. It's a prayer that has been included by our people in our evening service for centuries. It's a prayer that asks that we get home safely, that we lie down in safety and security to a peaceful night, to life renewed the next day. And in our turbulent world, in our turbulent times, this prayer seems so modern and so contemporary and so important for us as we ask God, as our ancestors did, to shelter us beneath a sukkah of peace, a sukkah, a fragile space that we appreciate so much as it gives us a place to rest and a place to be together with shlemut, with wholeness and with shalom. Page 36.
Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom Ve'amidenu Malkeinu L'chaim Ufros alenu Sukat shelomecha V'tagnenu be'etza tova Ilfanecha Ve'hoshienu Leman shemecha Ushmor tzedenu volenu Chaim ul'shalom Me'ata Me'ata Me'ata
Kaddish on page 40.
Yitkadal ve'yitkadash Shemei Rabba Be'alma divrach yiruteh Yamlich malchuteh B'chayechun u'yomechun U'chayed chol bet Yisrael וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשא. לעילא ולעילא, מן כל ברכתה ושירתה.
When the rabbis of the Talmud use the word prayer, tefillah, they use it to refer to the prayer we are about to say, the Amida. Tradition suggests that we are to say the Amida with our feet together and with an immense amount of focus. In fact, the Talmud even says that if a snake should wrap itself around your feet, you are to continue to say the Amida, unless, of course, the snake looks angry. In order to get into this mindset of focus, there is a custom of taking 3 steps back and then 3 steps forward before beginning the Amida. If you're not familiar with this custom, I invite you to try it on now as we pray for our ability to pray with Adonai Sefatai Tiftach, the introduction to the Amida. Please rise, you are risen. Page 42.
Adonai Sfatai Tiftach, Adonai Sfatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagi Tehilatecha, Ufi Yagi Tehilatecha. Adonai Sfatai Tiftach, Adonai Sfatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagi Tehilatecha, Ufi Yagi Tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Ha'gadol, Ha'gibor, Ve'hanora, Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, Ve'koneh hakol, Ve'zocher chastei avot ve'imahot, Ve'evir geola livnei bneihem leman shemo be'ahava. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, בחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע מוריד הטל.
Please be seated. In the next section of prayer, we consider how to honor God. The liturgy suggests there are three ways of doing this. We can honor God with awe, we can honor God with respect, and we can honor God through righteous deeds. We begin in the next prayer with awe. When I think of awe and words like wonder and amazement, the first thing that comes to my mind is this room, this sanctuary that we are in now. So as we continue with this prayer for awe, I encourage you all to take in the beautiful space we are in, the windows, the dome, the beautiful place with the 1,109 light bulbs. We continue with Uvechen on page 49.
וישתחוו לפניך כל הברואים, ויעשו כולם אגודה אחד לעשות רצונך בלבב שלם כמו שידענו אדוני אלוהינו שהשלטון לפניך עוז בידך וגורם בימינך ושמך נודע על כל מה שבראת.
You are are holy, your name is holy. Seekers of holiness praise you day by day. Selah. And so in your holiness, give all creation the gift of awe. Turn our fear to reverence. And so in your holiness, give your people the gift of honor. And so in your holiness, give the righteous the gift of a vision bright with joy. Together on the bottom of page 54. May we be remembered for safety, well-being, and favor, for love and compassion, for life and for peace on this day of remembrance. Zochreinu Adonai Eloheinu bo letova.
Amen.
Uvkodenu vo lebracha.
Amen.
Vehoshienu vo lechaim.
Amen.
Eternal our God, remember us.
Amen.
Be mindful of us.
Amen.
And redeem us for a life of goodness and blessing.
Amen.
We continue on page 57. This is the season of God. This is the season of our humanity. And this is the day when one word stands out at the very center of Jewish prayer. Meloch, 3 letters. Mem, Lamed, Chaf, reign over space and time. Meloch, reign over the infinite expanse. Show us your reality. Help us see our finite place in the cosmos that is our home. What is God's sovereignty? What is God's rule? It is the rule of unity by which we sense coherence in the universe. It is the power of relationship, relating every image of God to every other image of God, to every facet of nature. Sunshine and ocean waves, heartbeats, honeybees, the stuff that stars are made of. It is the ultimate power that governs our lives with wisdom, compassion, truth, and kindness. In this season of God, may we breathe new life into the ancient name, Meloch HaOlam. And may the ruler of the universe breathe new life into each of us. We continue now with Meloch on page 56.
Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avoteinu Melech al kol ha'olam kulo b'chvodecha ve'hinasa al kol ha'aretz b'korecha והפר בדר גאונותיך על כל יושבי תבל ארצך וידע כל פועל כי אתה פעלת ויבין כל יצור כי אתה יצרת ויאמר כל אשר נשמה באפו ואמר כל אשר נשמה באפו אדוני אלוהי ישראל מלך ומלכותו בכל משלה קדשנו במצוותיך ותן חלקנו בתורתך. סבנו מטובך, ושמחנו בשורתך. וטהר ליבנו לעבדך באמת, כי אתה אלוהים אמת, ודברך אמת, ויקום לעד. ברוך אתה אדוני מלך על כל הארץ, מקדש ישראל. 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 ויום הזיכרון.
We continue in silence until page 68.
שלום רב על ישראל עמך ועל כל יושבי תבל. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום ועל כל יושבי תבל. שלום תשים לעולם. כי אתה הוא מלך אדם לכל השלום. כי אתה הוא מלך אדם לכל השלום. שלום רב על ישראל עמך ועל כל יושבי תבל. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה לשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך ועל כל יושבי תבל. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם.
Thank you so much to all of our angels singing up there and filling our space with such beautiful music. On Friday, March 13th, 2020, Cantor and I stood in this very spot, each hugging our own end of the podium. Actually, I think the podium was on the floor. The seats in the sanctuary were empty. We talked and sang as if all of you were here. But you weren't here. You were at home, maybe wearing your slippers, maybe wearing your pink bathrobe. We couldn't see you. We looked out to an empty sanctuary and drifted slowly towards each other at the middle of the podium. On the recording, you can hear me saying with a big smile, "Cantor, you'll have to back up. Social distancing. We're not 6 feet apart." In the awkwardness of our first recorded Shabbat, we had no idea what was to come. 2 weeks, I thought, 3 at most. We'll stay home. What will we do? And then we'll resume normal life. I wasn't right about that. On the Wednesday following the first pandemic Shabbat service, I wrote a letter to the congregation. It began, "Hello out there." After several days of isolation, it seemed to me that we needed to connect and check in on each other, to lift spirits a little bit after a strange and confusing few days of isolation. Hello out there, wherever you are, near yet far away. Hello out there, my community. Are you okay? What did you do this week? My first letter included an article about the power of connection and smiles and an interview with Dr. Jeremy Faust on CNN. Many people responded to that first letter, sharing comments, concerns, stories, or just checking in, my favorite response that first week came from Gay Seiler, who told me she was doing well wearing her bathing suit and slippers as she was trying to follow my instructions from the prior year's Yom Kippur sermon. You might remember to wear the darn bathing suit. She was doing this while sheltering in place, of course. In case you missed that sermon, it's available on YouTube or on our website. I loved Gay's effort to help a new pandemic fashion emerge under the confusing circumstances. Another unprecedented week went by. On the next Friday morning, I sent another letter to the congregation. "Hello out there," my second letter began. Again. I thanked Gay and Roz Tolson for their courageous COVID fashion efforts. Roz had begun showing up on Zoom in the brightest, coziest pink bathrobe you can imagine, a statement all of us had secretly dreamt of making for years, but never actually pulled off. In the second letter to the congregation, I noticed the similarity between what the rabbis of old had wondered about Noah's Ark and my pandemic life. In the Talmud, the rabbis commented on the chaos that Noah and his wife encountered, sheltering in place for 40 days and nights in their too small ark. The famous boat was filled with all manner of diurnal and nocturnal animals, many of whom needed to be separated, like my children. How did that work? 2 weeks into this pandemic, I empathized with Mr. and Mrs. Noah. We too had been stuck at home with utter chaos. I was living with 2 toddlers whose preschools had been canceled without warning, and a husband on the front lines. Like Noah and his family, I was trapped with wild animals, and there was no sign of dry land. We could never survive 40 days, as Noah and his household did on the ark, I thought. Who could have imagined that this pandemic would go on some 20 times as long as the flood so far, and it's not over yet. After the second letter went out, an erudite recipient with an excellent vocabulary sent me an email commenting on my missive. I hadn't heard that word since 4th grade when I had to memorize vocabulary words inwardly wise. Anybody else remember that workbook? Yes, some people I even went to school with. Each week, I made flashcards with a new word on one side and a definition on the reverse. Most of those words I have never encountered, even after 100 more years of school and 4 decades on Earth. But I vaguely remembered the word missive. It had been lost deep in the recesses of my memory, and so the word was revived in my life. It was becoming clear that my Friday morning emails, letters, commentaries, reminiscences would theretofore be known as my missives. And so this weekly ritual was born. I wrote 66 missives, or 67, depending on how you count them. Week 3 rolled around, and we were starting to notice that things were going to last a bit longer than we had expected. Restaurants were closing. My favorite bubble tea place posted a sign saying they wouldn't be back until May. May? John and I said to each other, staring at the sign on the door. That is an awfully long time to wait for bubble tea. But soon we all came to see that it wasn't only bubble tea that it would be hard to find. Other things disappeared from reach too. Grocery store shelves were missing many things: hand sanitizer, toilet paper, and pasta, to name a few. In the third missive, I included a link to a New Yorker article titled, "What Would Freud Make of the Toilet Paper Panic?" We as a society were starting to feel the stress. How are we supposed to function? How do we live at all normally under these circumstances? We wondered. I closed the third missive with a link to a video Jo Beth Walt sent about getting a haircut while social distancing from the stylist. I watched it at least 1 million times, laughing every single time the hairdresser threw a bucket of water at her client to rinse shampoo out of her hair. It was a much-needed laugh in week 3 of a situation where none of us had any idea how to proceed. April brought us Passover. It was easy to make the connection to ancient plagues as we were living in a modern one. Soon people realized the incredible significance of human connection, and we were starting to create it again in new ways everywhere. The daily 7 p.m. applause and cheering for medical workers in New York became legendary. On Easter Sunday, famed singer Andrea Bocelli performed for the world from the empty cathedral in Milan. Symphonies and dance companies recorded creative outdoor performances to give people a little bit of art and connection. Kindness spread. As the week started to go by, people tried new recipes. We took up new hobbies. We explored our own city. We called each other. Howard Wexler even drove across town and threw a bag of hard-to-find yeast over our gate so I could learn to bake challah. I waved to Marty Wiener and his brothers, Steve and Norm, from across the street as they took their afternoon walks near our house. Weeks went by. We made new routines or accepted having no routines at all. Each week, I read lots of newspapers and magazines looking for articles that would appear in my Friday missives. I wrote about all sorts of topics. Some were serious and some utterly ridiculous. There were things that people were thinking about, even as we had no idea what to think about. I shared articles about talking lingerie, airplane flights to nowhere, dripping hair dye, the first Jewish first gentleman, flavored hummus, stolen cacti, and so many other things. They were subjects we had maybe never thought about before, but hey, we had never lived through a pandemic before, or been isolated with our own thoughts and anxieties for so long. The missives became an opportunity for me to share how I was feeling, how my family was faring, and to ask about you. So many of you responded with stories of your own, articles, jokes, requests for help. I delighted in each and every one of the emails I got. I knew we were all connected, even when we felt alone. Probably my favorite stories came from the missive I wrote about See's candy. Many people shared memories and stories about their own love of See's and the unique traditions their own family had for discovering what was inside each truffle. Only decades from now, when anthropologists, psychologists, and epidemiologists write up their research, will we know the true effects of this totally strange time. A few weeks into the pandemic, Harvard Business Review published an article called "That Discomfort You're Feeling is Grief." It was written 2.5 years ago, but it is an interesting look at the feelings we were then only starting to experience. The article focuses on an interview with David Kessler, who co-wrote the textbook on grief with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. You may be familiar with Kubler-Ross's groundbreaking work expressing grief through 5 distinct stages. In the interview, David Kessler explained that our feelings early on were akin to grief. But unlike a personal grieving experience, it was happening to all of us at the same time. We are not used to this kind of collective grief in the air, he said. As I read his comments recently, many of the things he talked about were prescient and so resonant now. He described anticipatory grief and all of the stress of the unknowns which hadn't yet unfolded. He also talked about truth during grief. The truth is a feeling that moves through us, he said, and then changes us. Certainly, there are many truths we've discovered and changes we see within ourselves. We've learned lessons about human nature and the nature of human life, my own 66-week, not very scientific writing experiment helped me understand a bit about how people have been navigating this very unique time. Over the last 2 years, we've spent hours thinking about what's really important to us and what changes we need to keep when life eventually returns to normal. The missives taught me so much and helped me to think about this pandemic experience through a new lens. Here are a few of my learnings, things I hope will stay with us even when the masks are gone. Number 1, sharing life with others is critically important for human happiness. During the pandemic, isolation has been one of the biggest difficulties. Normal communication, facial expressions, social outings, hugs were all impossible. And as such, we suffered from lack of sharing our lives with others. We craved connection. Birthday dinners by Zoom are just not good enough. In addition to the deep connections that all of us missed, we also lost out on casual conversation with strangers. An article I quoted in one of the missives made me aware of how much small interactions at the grocery store or the coffee place contribute to our lives. We are social creatures. I hope we'll always remember how much sharing life with others contributes to human happiness. Number 2, we've all had a chance to consider which things, people, choices in our lives truly make us happy, and which ones are just clutter or bring us down. Certainly one thing we can take from this pandemic time is the importance of evaluating how we're spending our time and with whom. Many articles have been written about sweeping changes in society, people moving across the country, moving to the country, changing jobs, following a long-held dream to go somewhere or do something. This pandemic time has given us an opportunity to do a giant reset, a Control-Alt-Delete on all of our choices. Surround yourself with things and people that you love. Keep only the objects and the people that make you smile, even on a day when the sun doesn't come up. Apparently, that can happen. Number 3, we should use our imaginations more. Magical thinking helps everything. It makes for fun daydreams, and hard times become a bit more manageable. One of my favorite articles that I shared in a missive was about this very subject. I reported a fact that I read early on in the pandemic. Sales of pajamas rose 143% in 1 month. The author of the article described many innovations in sleepwear. I won't go into them now, don't worry. But she suggested that magical thinking about our loungewear could go a long way towards making us feel better while stuck at home. I appreciated her suggestion that one could choose to wear a white waffle weave bathrobe and imagine quarantine as a stay at an appallingly understaffed spa. Our experiences have a lot to do with how we approach them. During this pandemic, my family has spent hours and hours climbing trees, hiking, and looking for wildlife. We've invented games, gone on treasure hunts in the garden, and sipped pretend tea in forts made of tree branches. The pandemic has taught me that grown-ups' imaginations have long been underutilized. We should fix that going forward. Number 4, there is joy in unexpected places. In one missive, I included a picture of this spectacular owl John and I saw sitting on a branch just overhead on one of our hikes. It was a day that needed a little joy. We felt too cooped up for too long, so we went out for a walk. I'll probably never spot an owl on that branch again, but I will always look up there, hoping to see one. Joy can come when you're not expecting it. Number 5, the brilliance of the human mind is boundless. The ingenuity and creativity, the scientific inquiry and determination that brought us vaccines in such a short time represent the very best of what the human brain can create. I'm in awe of the intelligence God implanted within us. I'm also amazed by how much knowledge and wisdom we have to share with one another. Throughout the pandemic, as we've gathered together for our From the Front Lines conversations, to hear our local trusted experts talk about various aspects of COVID and contemporary life, I've been so inspired by the realization that we are a tremendous resource for each other. Right in our own community, we have so much expertise on many subjects, from making delicious challahs to immunology. We can help each other navigate all aspects of life. If we've learned one thing from the pandemic, we've learned this: we are a community, and together we can do anything. In March of 2020, I said, if this pandemic goes on for any length of time, people will not want to gather together anymore. They'll get used to living their lives on Zoom and never taking off their slippers. They'll lose a sense of community. Thankfully, I was wrong. So wrong about that. In all of the disruption of this pandemic time, one thing has become perfectly clear: the opposite is true. We need each other. Even in the moments when we felt alone or isolated, this community has given support and strength to all of us. We know how critically important community is. Certainly the last 2.5 years has been a stressful time. It's been full of collective grief and anxiety and loneliness, but also a time of incredible kindness and concern about others. In fact, the pandemic has allowed us to witness unprecedented kindness, laughter, and cooperation. We've seen this in small and large ways. We need to hold on to that. During this painful time, we've been our best selves in many ways. How can we ensure that all the good that we saw in our own behavior and that of others can continue in the world? Kindness needs to become the lasting legacy of this pandemic. Tonight, all of us have made it to this place. Some of us at home, some of us here in person. All of us are bravely trying to navigate an unknown world. We don't know how to feel. Often we can't even identify our emotions. Like our gatherings, they too have become hybrid. We are scared-joyful, excited-hesitant, confused-connecting. In 1903, Crayola made just 8 colors of crayons: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, black, and brown. By 1949, the number of colors the company made had jumped to 48, and many of the new colors were composites: blue-violet, violet-red, green-yellow, blue-green. I think today our lives are made up almost entirely of composite colors. Blended and interesting, complementary and clashing, alive and vibrant. So, where do we go from here? It's time to go forward into our future. We cannot hold on to the grief that has consumed us any longer, and it is time to let go of fear. I am confident that if we stand together and we hold up kindness, we will survive and thrive. We now know that leaning into this community is what we can do. We can find ways to connect and navigate turbulent times together. We can try to make sense of a complicated world together. Like the ancient Israelites, we constructed a new idea of community while in exile. We strengthened our identity while wandering in the desert, longing to be back in our sacred home. And like the ancient Israelites, we imagined and created a new future that we are now ready to build. A new youth education program, a new preschool, a new commitment to our synagogue's future. Join us. On week 63 of the pandemic, I wondered in print what I had accomplished during all the time we were busy not living normal lives. 63 weeks is a long time, I wrote. It's about the length of time of a giraffe's pregnancy. And what have I done with it? I wrote, I could have done a lot of creative things while waiting anxiously for this pandemic to pass, like studying the entire Talmud or learning to play the bassoon. I could have taken up kite surfing, ice skating, or bird watching, but I didn't. Alas, despite good intentions, I still haven't baked any popovers or read Harry Potter either. Where has the time gone? Just before the high holidays last year, it seemed that life might be returning to normal. Of course, that turned out not to be true, but looking forward to being together in person, I wrote my last missives about re-entry. In one of them, I shared an article about experiences of people putting on real shoes again after 2.5 years of comfy slippers. One woman in the article was trying on heels for the first time in ages. I feel like a gazelle that's just been born, she said, as she put on a pair of stilettos and tried to walk. We're all a little wobbly. It will take us a bit of time to remember the old rules or invent new ones. I still reach for my slippers every time I get dressed. But all of my slippers have holes in them after 2.5 years of pacing around the house. So it really is time to stop wearing them. Time to get on with it. Time to engage with the world. The time has come for a new beginning filled with possibility and joy and opportunities to celebrate life together. Shana Tova. Every year at some point during the Chagim, I tell the story about where I got this talit, and I feel like I just have to tell you this right now because it keeps falling off. And I can hear Rabbi Raphael's voice saying, "Get a tallis clip." This drove him crazy. A number of years ago when I lived on the Upper West Side, I wanted to get a white talit for the high holidays, and my grandmother said, "Go down to West Side Judaica and pick out the talit you want and let me know how much it is. I'll buy it for you." So I went down to West Side Judaica. I'm sure many of you, anybody been there? Yeah, so, oh my gosh, not as many as I thought. Okay, so it's no longer, I don't even know if it's still there, but I marched myself down to West Side Judaica, and it was owned by an ultra-Orthodox family, and I walked in and I said, "I need a white talit for the Chagim," and the guy there looked me over and said, "How tall is he?" I said, "He's my height." Exactly my height. And he said, "Oh, well, then it's probably best if you try this on, because you'll know if it will fit him." And I said, "All right, well, I'll do that." And so I put it on, and he looked at me through his fingers like this. He didn't want to see the horror of looking at me wearing a white talit, but he wanted to make sure it was the right size. He says, "This is the talis for you. No slip, no schwitz, no itch." So it turns out he was wrong. It slips a ton if you happen to be wearing something slippery underneath. And I'm a little schwitzy, I have to say. It's hot in here. But it doesn't itch. That's true. But I digress. We continue. We continue in our Machzorim on page 74. And I would like to invite some very special people to join us here on the Bima. Cece Kaufman-Himmelstein and Mayaka Mara, who are over here, these lovely ladies who are going to join us. Behind the scenes at a synagogue, there are always things going on that take incredible people to do them. There are things that most of us don't even notice need to be done. And yet, when you get two extraordinary people who have vision and talent and great taste, sometimes these things come together even better than we might have imagined. So many of you got to know Cece and Mayaka at our beautiful gala outside, and it was such a great pleasure for us to be able to come back together. But even more than the beautiful gala, both of you have inspired us and continue to inspire us and make this place amazing. And sometimes we don't even see, most of the time, all the work that goes into what makes this community as great as it is. And the two of you are a huge part of that. So we thank you and honor you tonight as you come up to the Ark. I'd also like to invite our Cantor Emeritus, Cantor Martin Feldman. He's here. Here he is right in front to join us here on the Bima. We turn to page 74 and open the Ark. Please rise. We call you Avinu, as loving parent, forgive our wrongs and failings, accept us in our human frailty. We call you Malkeinu, as sovereign of our souls, help us rise from our brokenness to build a world of shalom. To this vision, we offer ourselves anew. We continue responsively on page 76.
Avinu Malkeinu, ein lanu melech ela ata.
Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, you alone are our sovereign.
Avinu Malkeinu, lema'an cha rachem aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, for your sake, show us mercy.
Avinu Malkeinu, aseh imanu lema'an shemecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, act toward us as befits your name.
Avinu Malkeinu, shelach refuah shlema lechole amecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, bring healing and wholeness to the ill among us.
Avinu Malkeinu, kara ro'ah gazer dinenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, allay the harshness of the decree against us.
Avinu Malkeinu, kodvenu vasefer geula vishua.
Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of redemption and renewal.
Avinu Malkeinu Zochrenu V'zichron Tov Lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, remember our goodness and call it to mind.
Avinu Malkeinu Aseh Lema'ancha V'hoshienu.
Avinu Malkeinu, act for your sake and save us. Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, Almighty and merciful, hear our voice.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu Lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, we have strayed and sinned before you.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol Aleinu Ve'al Olaleinu V'tapenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us and on our families.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kale Dever V'cherev V'ra'av Me'aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, halt the onslaught of sickness, violence, and hunger.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kale Kol Tsar Umastin Me'aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, halt the reign of those who cause pain and terror.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kodvenu B'sefer Chaim Tovim.
Avinu Malkeinu, enter our names in the book of lives well lived.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chadesh Aleinu Shana Tova.
Avinu Malkeinu, renew for us a year of goodness.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu Ve'anenu, Ki ein banu ma'asim, Aseh imanu tzedaka v'chesed v'hoshienu.
Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, answer us with grace, for our deeds are wanting. Save us through acts of justice and love.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu Lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol Aleinu. Ve'al olaleinu, v'tapenu. Avinu Malkeinu,
We turn to page 82 for Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי ארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
Please be seated. We turn to page 86. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey. From childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again. From health to sickness and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey stage by stage a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey. A sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage from birth to death to life everlasting. We stand together as one community now as we support all of our mourners who are here. We turn to page 90 for Kaddish Yatom, for the prayer which does not speak about death, but rather thanks God for the privilege of the lives that we had among us. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbi, ve'alma divra chirutei ve'amlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael ba'agalau v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevorach leolam u'almei almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudsha brichu la'ela u'la'ela mikol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechemata da'miran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlam araba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. May the source of peace bestow peace on all who mourn, and may we be a source of comfort to all who are bereaved. And we say together, amen.
Amen.
Please be seated. Gordon Gladstone, are you here? There he is, our executive director who takes care of pretty much everything except funerals, is right here. It's kind of how we divide our responsibilities, right? Funerals, everything else, kind of. Here's a microphone. Before I turn over the microphone entirely, just a couple of hellos, don't go away, just a couple of hellos. I want to say hello to Rabbi Greg Wolf and family who join us. You'll hear more about the wonderful Wolf family tomorrow, but I just want to welcome you home since your retirement. It's your first time, I think, to be able to be here with us on the Yamim Noraim with your wonderful family, and we love you, Rhoda. I also want to welcome your mom, who came very, very far. Hi, Toby's mom.
Kathy, Toby's mom, whatever.
Kathy's visiting us from down under. If you get a chance to speak to her, you'll hear that she has a very fabulous accent, just like our Cantor. And now, without further ado, some announcements.
Yeah. Why, thank you. Okay, so let me start off by saying how wonderful it is to see all of you here. You know, it's not typical to applaud in a Jewish service, so don't. But it's really, really delightful to see this house like this. I am very hopeful that all of you, when you wandered in, got one of these. And if you didn't, please help yourself to one on the way out, as it outlines a number of upcoming events. But it does not tell you what's going to happen tomorrow. So tomorrow at 10 a.m. we will gather again here for morning services. Following that, at 1:30, we will gather for Tashlich. It's a slight change of location this year. So if you've just been one of those people who have never really looked to see where is Tashlich, I'm just going to go to the same place down near the warming hut, don't do it. We're across from the House of Air this year. So if you know where the House of Air is, if you don't, you can Google it. You can also look at the email that we sent out today that has an exact pin drop, as the kids would say. Do the kids still say that? Telling you where we'll be. And we'll have a bit of nosh. It's not a full-on lunch. We don't have a food truck. Permitting is, I can't say that on the air, difficult. But there will be some Wise Sons Deli. We can argue about the merits of their bialys. I think they're a little puffy, but I was born in New York, and I have opinions. The following Friday night, we'll be back here for Shabbat. I hope to see all of you, most of you, some of you, any of you, and then Yom Kippur to follow. As always, we try and keep the website up to date, so if there's anything you feel like, oh, what was that again? You can check the website, and please do take one of these. On your way out, if you can take your maksor, your prayer book, and return it to the pile from whence it came, that helps us at the end of the night. Please check your personal space for your personal belongings before you exit. And if I had a cue sheet in front of me, I'd know who I'm turning it over to now. Probably some guy in a blue suit.
That'll be you.
Wait, George, come here.
We're doing, it's like a who wore it best kind of situation, right?
So the game we're playing right now is who wore it better? Don't answer that.
We are. Please, after you.
We turn to page 79 for Kiddush and stand together as we celebrate this special time of Yontif. Page 79.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol am, ורוממנו מכל לשון, וקידשנו במצוותיו. ותיתן לנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה, את יום הזיכרון הזה, יום תרועה, מקרא קודש, זקר יציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים. ודברך אמת, וקיים לעד. ברוך אתה אדוני, מלך על כל הארץ, מקדש ישראל ויום הזיכרון. ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. Amen. L'chaim.
Chaim. We turn now to page 95 as we conclude our service with Ein Keloheinu.
Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadolenu, Ein Malkeinu, Ein Moshienu, Min Eloheinu, Min Kadolenu, Min Malkeinu, Min Moshienu. Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu. Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu. Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Malkeinu, Ein Moshienu. Non como nuestro Dios, non como nuestro Señor, non como nuestro Rey, non como nuestro Salvador. Mi Eloheinu, mi Adonenu, mi Malkeinu, mi Moshienu. ¿Quién como nuestro Dios? ¿Quién como nuestro Señor? ¿Quién como nuestro Rey? ¿Quién como nuestro Salvador? No del Eloheinu, no del Adonenu, no del Malkeinu, no del Moshienu. Lo haremos a nuestro Dios, lo haremos haremos a nuestro Señor, lo haremos a nuestro Rey, lo haremos a nuestro Salvador. Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, bendito nuestro Dios, bendito nuestro Señor, bendito nuestro Rey, bendito nuestro Salvador. Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, tú sos nuestro Dios, tú sos nuestro Señor, tú sos nuestro Rey, tú sos nuestro Salvador.
Shana Tova, turn to all the real, live, 3D humans around you and give them a big
Shana
hug.
Tova umetuka.